Functional ingredients for me are ingredients that have a function in the pet's body. So, something that will support gut health, something that will support immunity. Maybe it's a vitamin or a mineral that's got higher bioavailability than what the competition is offering. It could be a fiber ingredient that has excellent levels of insoluble soluble fiber that also support gut health. So something that really has an intrinsic capacity to support pet health.
Welcome everyone to the Pet Food Science Podcast brought to you by Wisenetics. I'm Jan Sugodolski, I'm here professor at Texas A&M University. I'm really dedicated to bring you the latest insights and discussions into the pet food science and industry. So get ready to expand your knowledge and stay ahead with today's episode. And I'm really excited today because today we're going to have Carolyn Kennedy. And Carolyn is a consultant, and her topic that we're going to discuss today is about novel food ingredients. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
That's great. So usually we start like this, that you introduce yourself, tell us your career, how was your path from all the way from the beginning, and how did you really end up in the position that you are now?
I love talking about my journey to pet food because it wasn't what I started out as. So I studied human nutrition at university in Canada and moved to England. That was where my life took me. So once in England, I was working in human nutrition, and I just found that nobody was listening to my advice. It was hard to get the message across, and I was very passionate about nutrition. And I ended up going for a job interview at a pet food plant and got the job. And I absolutely fell in love with the industry. It was over 20 years ago. So it was just when pet food was really changing into something that pet owners think a lot more about. And I was able to really get in at the beginning and start thinking about, wow, how can I take my nutrition knowledge from humans and then learn more about how pets need to eat, what's important to them, and put that into pet food. It was a wonderful career choice, and I'm ever so grateful for the company that took a chance on me to hire me as a formulator and nutritionist there. And after many years of working there, living in the northwest of England, I just decided that the rain was a little bit too much for me to handle. I love to get outside, and that climate didn't always allow for that. So I moved to the United States and stayed on consulting for the company in England. And soon after, a couple months of consulting for them, and they gave my name out a few times. And then before I knew it, I was working full time as a consultant. So I've been the director of CK Nutrition now for 15 years, and I'm proud to say we have clients all around the world. We work on formulations, but also label reviews, import permits, state registrations, basically anything to do with pet food. I try to help as much as I can.
ProAmpac, your companion in pet packaging. Visit pets.proampac.com to explore our innovative sustainable solutions, such as our QuadFlex recyclable flat bottom bags, ProDura polywoven bags, ProEvo recyclable paper bags with grease resistance, and our ProActive recyclable film and pouches that run at optimum speeds on your filling equipment. Elevate your wet food, treats, and kibble brand by utilizing packaging that safeguards and preserves product freshness. Trust ProAmpac for packaging that cares for your pets and the planet. pets.proampac.com.
Great. So how do companies approach you usually?
Usually they email me and say that they got a referral from someone else, or they found me online and they just ask, can you help us with our next project? And that's how it starts.
So how do you but usually you directly work through companies, correct? You don't have any direct contact also with owners or something like that?
No, not usually. So I'm working directly with pet food companies. Once in a while, some of the companies that I've worked with for a long time will have maybe a breeder or a pet owner that has a specific question. And I really enjoy getting to talk to pet owners as well. Even in my social groups, everyone knows that I work in pet food. So they're constantly asking me, well, should I feed this to my dog? What should I do? My dog has this. What do you think about that? So being able to talk to the end consumer is always something that's really exciting for me too.
So what is the usual process? So a company approaches you and they come up with an idea in which direction they go? Because today we're going to probably focus on novel ingredient diets, right? So how does this communication start typically?
Yes, usually a company will come to me and say, we're looking to do something different. And then
Okay.
that's where we start talking about, are you looking for different ingredients, which is something that I'm continuously learning about. I love it when ingredient companies come to me and say, this is what we're thinking. How would this fit into pet food? What would it look like? What do we need to do? So usually I'm talking to them about novel ingredients and possibly novel formats of pet food too, or just something to set it apart. It's a large industry with a lot of different players, so coming up with something different is often what the company wants to do to really get their brand out there.
And those are companies usually like small startup companies or also already established companies
Both.
when you okay.
Yeah, usually with the something new, it's often small startup companies and they always have some fantastic ideas. And then working with established companies, they might be looking at expanding their product range as well, or just improving it. Sometimes they want to add something different to their already existing product range to provide a greater functional benefit to the animal.
So what is the kind of so let's maybe go back a little bit. When you started, where was pet food roughly? What was the kind of the thinking? What kind of ingredients would we use? And so over the last, 10, 15 years in your experience, how does this whole journey develop and where are we going with it?
It has developed into areas that I never would have dreamed possible when I started. When I first started working at the pet food plant back in England in the early 2000s, it was more along the lines of meat meals, so protein meals, some carbohydrates. And then there were functional ingredients too. So I know we had ingredients that we included for joint health or gut health, skin and coat health. There were functional ingredients. And then from that, it kind of evolved into, wow, we can add a source of fresh chicken. It doesn't always have to be chicken meal. And then with that brought all kinds of new ways that you could list it on the packaging, and even flavor profiles improved because of the fresh ingredients. And from that, I would say the next major development was the evolution of the grain free pet food, which I believe started out because humans started thinking, well, maybe I don't want to eat gluten and maybe my dog doesn't either. And, pet food has a way of following the trends in human food, which is always fascinating. So, grain free was the next big thing. And then after that, it really got into more and more functional ingredients. And with that came new ingredients, novel ingredients that were really studied in different pet populations and different animals to see how can that improve the pet's health. And that's still a trend that continues. We saw a little bit the downfall of the grain-free pet food that's not quite as popular anymore due to the studies they were doing on DCM, which has been proven not to have a correlation at all. But I think it made pet food parents think, well, does my dog really need a grain free pet food? Or could a product with ancient grains work, or healthy grains with great fiber levels? And just in the last few years, where I never saw this going was the evolution of human grade pet food.
Mhm.
So that is now something that is available from a few different brands, and consumers can choose that for their pet if they feel that's what they'd like to feed their pet.
So maybe let's go back a little bit. So obviously there's always trends, right? How does the science, how strong is the science? Sometimes trends, and I'm in gut health for 25 years myself, right? And so researching all novel things, but how do you think is the correlation between really the pace of science and research and then all of those new trends? It's a tricky question, but it's an
Yeah,
important, I think.
I think the trends come out first, and then
Yeah.
and then the science follows. When it comes to functional ingredients, I see that there is with functional ingredients, I see a lot of science first to back up the ingredient. What can this ingredient do to support the pet's health, and how? And animal studies that prove this. Functional ingredients I see are a little bit different than trends. So, functional ingredients, the science is there. Trends, I think it's just the way the market is moving.
Can you maybe define what you define as a functional ingredient? What areas are we thinking about?
Functional ingredients for me are ingredients that have a function in the pet's body. So, something that will support gut health, something that will support immunity. Maybe it's a vitamin or a mineral that's got higher bioavailability than what the competition is offering. It could be a fiber ingredient that has excellent levels of insoluble soluble fiber that also support gut health. So something that really has an intrinsic capacity to support pet health in a way that maybe hasn't been seen before.
Okay. And this is something that also can be communicated easily to the owner?
That depends. Sometimes, yes. I believe when it comes to gut health, pet owners can see an improvement in stool quality. And
Mhm.
stool quality is really the best indicator as a pet owner myself that we have of how's our pet doing. Things like support skin and coat health can be seen. I think it's harder to see that sometimes, depending on the type of pet you have. I believe there's certain breeds where the skin and coat is a lot shinier and
Mhm.
you can really see the improvements in shine. But the place where I think it can be seen a lot is if a pet has a lot of hot spots and they're itchy a lot of the time, possibly switching food to something that supports skin and coat health as well as gut health, you might be able to see some positive improvements there.
So when you work on a pet food formula, what is the most important consideration for yourself? How do you approach this?
The most important consideration is the nutrient profile, getting that to be where it needs to be for the specific life stage, as well as the calorie content, making sure that those nutrients are met. That is the most important piece of it for me. So sometimes companies will come to me and say, well, we want to do X, Y, and Z. And that's not always possible because the ingredients they might want to have as the first three ingredients could be too high in calcium and phosphorus for a large breed puppy. So that's where I might have to advise them, well, you wouldn't be able to do that because the levels of some minerals are going to be too high. We need to figure that out, maybe choose some different ingredients and put those together and see where that comes out. So nutrient profile is key. And then I would say second to that is taste.
Mhm.
Those are the two things that I'm really focused on. And then lastly, making sure that if it's an extruded kibble that we have enough starch in there so that we get the correct extrusion and it actually looks good from a consumer perspective as well.
And then how do you afterwards try to play with the functional ingredients? Because I guess they're also like it's probably like a price question too, correct?
Yes, it is a price question. Often those functional ingredients, they can be pricey, but a lot of the functional ingredients that I work with, the inclusion rate is very small and they've studied the inclusion rate to determine how much do we need to add to get the functional supporting benefit that we're looking for. So I always feel that I can sell the functional ingredients because you're only adding a small amount and the outcome is really improved because of this addition. And mostly when it comes to this, I'd be talking about gut health ingredients or something to support skin and coat health or minerals that have high bioavailability.
So are usually then afterwards the next step also doing some studies with those diets, or what is the next step afterwards after you formulated the one diet?
Yes, after I formulated the diets, the next step is always let's see what this costs. Does it fit into your costing model? And then once we have that information, then yes, palatability studies is important, as well as lab testing too. I can come up with a nutrient profile using my software, but it's always a good idea to test it in a lab too and just make sure that those nutrients are where we think they're going to be. And then doing the palatability studies to make sure the dog or the cat eats the product. It's great to come up with a good formula, but if you have a product that no pet is going to eat, it's just going to fall flat.
So that means you have also a big network of companies and other laboratories you work with.
I do. Yeah, I have my go-to labs and then my go-to places for testing the product too. And usually it'll be a different lab testing facility depending on the region where the product is because shipping pet food out of the country where you're making it comes with its own complications too. Then you need import permits and that sort of thing. So
I can see that. So let's go back a little bit to this human grade diets. I think that's becomes very popular. You said this is really like increasing. Can you tell us a little bit again, maybe the history a little bit, and what's the trends? What's the percentage of diets that are human grade nowadays, and where do you see it going? How big is the market share going to be?
So the market share of human grade is still quite small. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head of how much of the product is human grade, but it is a small amount, and it's difficult to formulate a human grade product. You have to, at least in the United States, if you're saying the product is human grade, it has to use all human grade ingredients. They have to be transported in methods according to human grade products, so any food product. They have to be made in a human grade facility, and that facility also has to produce food for humans. So already it's challenging because you don't have the same access to a lot of the functional ingredients that I love to use, or the palatability enhancers that I love to use. So it is more challenging in that sourcing the ingredients is harder. And then the second challenge is that it's costly as well. So I feel that it's something that will continue to grow at a slow pace. I think there are consumers out there that pets are now part of the family, and it comes down to choice and what you want to spend on your pet food, and what you think your pet likes the most. And if that's, a human grade product where you're using grade A beef, then I think you're perfectly entitled to look for that. So that's where I see it going.
No, that's an excellent point that it's so difficult to actually get access to it. So maybe because we have a wide audience, including me, I'm not a nutritionist by training. So what is the definition of a human grade, ingredient versus the classical traditional diets that we use?
A human grade ingredient is an ingredient that's suitable for human consumption. And a feed ingredient is an ingredient that's suitable for feed consumption. So the two are very different. And on a human grade pet food product, you still have to put not for human consumption. But if you're calling it human grade dog food, all those ingredients have to be entirely human grade. If you have just one ingredient in there, such as the vitamin premix that you're getting from a feed supplier, then that makes the entire product not suitable to be listed as human grade. And when you go to register the product, states will actually be looking for the list of ingredients to ensure that each one is human grade. So it does come with a lot of regulatory requirements as well.
That makes it also really complicated, I see.
Yes.
Well, then always a question comes and that's a tricky question again, is a little bit, the balance between, sustainability and things like that. So how do you kind of approach this discussion itself?
That is a very tricky question. It's also
So,
quite a dividing question, because I like to think that the food that we're feeding our pets comes from the same ingredients we're eating, but parts that we might not be eating. So we're going back to using the whole animal. And I like to think that by doing that, maybe we're reducing food waste, we're being a little bit more conscious when it comes to consumption. With human grade products, there will be some differences there because they do have to be human grade. But I know that we can still use parts of the animal that we wouldn't eat, but just that they're completely staying in the human grade food chain. So I believe there's a way to be sustainable with both conventional pet food from the feed ingredients and human grade pet food as well. And a company that could really showcase that, to say we are human grade, but we're also sustainable, I think that's something that could really take off.
that's a great idea. What do you see as on the horizon? Another big area that is coming in the functional ingredients or novel ingredients.
What I see in functional ingredients, and I've mentioned on it a few times, is really the gut health. Because, and again, following in human trends, we're seeing that the gut is really, if you have a healthy gut as a human, it is going to impact your entire well-being, your cognitive ability, your skin and coat health, your mobility, everything, because it's where everything is absorbed, immune function. So I see that we're just going to continue making advancements in the supporting gut health realm. And you can now even link gut health to immunity, and that's a claim that has only been allowed in the last maybe couple of years, that is now accepted. So I see that the more we dive into that, what does it really mean to have a healthy gut and how do we get there? That's where I see the functional ingredients really making advancements.
So if you would design your diet, let's put it this way, you have unlimited resources, what would you put in there? I mean, in broad categories, don't have to set it
Yes.
detailed, but
Well, I would make sure that the ingredients that I'm choosing have great digestibility.
Mhm.
So that would be something that you can do some tests for to check their digestibility. And then I would add ingredients that specifically support gut health. So not just prebiotics, not just probiotics, but the combination of prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics. And not only that, so I'd be looking to add ingredients to make sure that the gut is being supported, able to absorb the nutrients as well as it can. And then I would make sure that the nutrients that I'm adding, such as minerals, had very high bioavailability too, to make sure that not only are we supporting the animal's gut, but we're also including ingredients that they can then absorb and use to the best of their ability. I should do that for myself.
it's funny actually, even surprisingly, I'm in the GI space, right? And even in a human, recommendations nowadays for humans, finally, from the American Gastroenterological Association in GI disease, is the Mediterranean diet.
Yes.
You would have thought this would have come many, many years ago, but now that this year it came actually as a recommendation. So is this really also something that could be applicable from a gut health, which I think it has everything, right? It has fiber, it has good olive oil, it has oils and things like that, omega-3 fatty acids. Is the same concept applicable to dogs and cats, you believe?
Yes, I believe so. And I think what's so great about the Mediterranean diet is that it's all wholesome ingredients that, like you said, have great levels of fiber, vitamins, and minerals, but there's also variety. And if that's one thing that I remember from my days years ago at university, it was variety, everything in moderation creates a healthy person.
That's true. And so that was the functional ingredient. And what do you think is the novel ingredient that those are upcoming?
The novel ingredient that I've seen just mentioned a little bit more is a postbiotic.
Okay. And what is that actually really? Because even I'm a little bit confused, I must say. I have probably a different definition from, from a scientific level than the newest definition by the...
Yes. So a postbiotic is basically what the probiotics create in the digestive tract that improves the functionability of the digestive tract. So quite often postbiotics are in the forms of yeast culture, and it's the ingredient, it's the end product of the probiotics that is living in the digestive tract to give those supportive benefits. And basically it's butyrate and the...
Okay, so it's really, okay, but it's, maybe let's go back a little bit because I know that there's a new definition. When I do microbiome research, for me a postbiotic is something that happens by conversion of bacteria, right? That was my personal definition, but now I know it's actually, the official definition is different. It has to be something that is administered, correct? And then it's converted. Or am I wrong with this?
So it can still be produced in the GI tract on its own. It is something that the probiotics will create, the bacteria will create this, but you can also add it to the diet. So that would be in the case of if the GI tract was not functioning to its best ability and it was not able to make those conversions, that's where adding a postbiotic would bring that benefit directly to the pet without getting them to make it themselves. But the pets can also make it themselves in their GI tract that's functioning well as well.
So I think postbiotics is getting mentioned much more and more. So you said butyrate is one. Are there other examples that are nowadays already ready for including in diets?
Yes, that would be the example of the yeast culture that I've
Okay.
used in different diets where it's functioning as a postbiotic in the GI tract.
And so what does it do? Ultimately, the mechanism is still through butyrate or some other components?
Yes, to create those healthy probiotic end products in the GI tract.
It's time for our famous three. ICC Animal Nutrition, a Brazilian company with 30 years of history and present in more than 70 different countries, providing natural, sustainable, and technological solutions for animal nutrition, health, and well-being in a safe and scientific way, adding value in food production and helping to feed the world.
Great, we're almost at the end of our episodes. So one question we always ask Or is there anything else you want to tell us a little bit about your area that we forgot to discuss?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. So one thing I'm always trying to ask a little bit is a question out of the box or not related, but it's more about your career. You seem very passionate. You told us how passionate you are. So you would give advice to some of our new young researchers, scientists, or for their career. What is the advice you could give them?
To learn as much as you can. Just keep learning about new ingredients. Learn everything you can about the pet food space. If this is your chosen career path or something you think you might be interested in, I would say you will never be disappointed. It's a very exciting industry, and there's so much to learn, whether it's functional ingredients, extrusion technology, technology for different types of foods, different formats. I would just say keep continuing to learn and have fun. It is a very fun industry as well. So I'm grateful to be a part of it.
I would agree. And you all seem very passionate about it too, and that's great. Having fun is the most important thing, I think.
Yes.
Excellent. Caroline, thank you so much for being a guest on our show. And I would like to thank all our audience. So this is that concludes another episode of the Pet Food Science Podcast, presented to you by Wisenetics. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on future episodes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review. Your feedback is very important to us. So until next time, my name is Jan Podolski. Until next time on the Pet Food Science Podcast. Goodbye.